everybody, this is Eden Mabon of lightcycleastrology.com. Welcome back to the channel, friends. Today we are doing Mantic Monday episode number 20, taking a look at the astrology that is coming for us in the week ahead between January the 22nd and the 28th of 2024. And the main astrology that is featured in this week that would be sort of like the headlining aspect, so to speak, is going to be the full moon that comes through in the sign of Leo on Thursday, that stands in opposition to the newly ingressed Pluto into the sign of Aquarius that took place at the end of last week. So a pretty big full moon that comes through and highlights that new Pluto in Aquarius signature. So we'll get into the astrology for the week ahead here in a moment. Before we do, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit notifications so you don't miss any videos. Leave some comments in the comment section, and you can always find me at lightcycleastrology.com and check out the readings that I offer there and the way that we work with clients in that traditional Hellenistic mode that we practice astrology in. The prices for readings are very affordable, and they also come with only a short wait, usually between a week and 2 weeks out. So if you're interested in a reading and getting some more personal astrological guidance, you can go to lightcycleastrology.com and check out the readings that I offer there. Okay, well, let's get into the astrology that is coming up. I do want to apologize. I am recovering from a pretty nasty cold that came through and clobbered everybody over the head in my family, and pretty much everybody that I know at some point was getting sick, and even one friend got COVID. I don't think that I got COVID, but it is definitely making my voice pretty raspy and a little stuffy sounding today. So I do apologize for the stuffy post-cold sound that is coming out of me. But let's go ahead and we'll pull up the real-time clock and take a look at the astrology that comes through. And I'm just going to skip ahead this week to the full moon, because essentially, you know, there are some minor aspects that are coming through. There are some sextiles this week that I think are playing a role in the astrological weather that we have. But by and large, the headlining aspect that I feel like the week is leading up to is really this full moon that comes through on Thursday, January the 25th, that makes an opposition to Pluto. And of course, we have Pluto now in the sign of Aquarius. This is Pluto's last dip in and then dip out of Aquarius that we get featured in this year, 2024. And then as we move into 2025, Pluto will be in the sign of Aquarius for, you know, the next 20 years. So we get one more of these toe dippings of Pluto in Aquarius this year. But of course, you know, Pluto being a very slow moving planet, you don't expect slow things to sort of just move really rapidly and things to change overnight. Transformation often takes a long time to occur, and it really gives it that effect of the frog in the boiling water, so to speak, where you don't really notice it because the water is slowly being brought up to temperature. That's sort of Pluto in essence. It's that slow transformation that isn't like may not be like the car crash and all of a sudden your life is transformed in these crazy ways, although I suppose that could be part of it as well. It's more likely to be the slow evolution of like, you know, those images of like things evolving over, you know, eons and eons of time, where it's like I love that story of the fish that it was advantageous for the fish to appear as though it had an eye on its ass, so that other predators sneaking up on it would be like, oh, this fish is looking at me. That's Pluto. I mean, not the silliness of Pluto, definitely not. But that, first of all, that's remarkable that somehow random genetic mutation can produce an eye on a fish's ass. For me, the comedy level of that almost almost gives you the clue, like, hey, this isn't random. There is some kind of cosmic intelligence or higher divine intelligence at work in life, which is sort of what I believe. But aside from that, that that idea that Pluto is so slow moving and taking its time to transit through each sign, and even just going into Aquarius and sort of dipping in one year and then coming out, and then the next year dipping in again and coming out, and taking its time working itself across that threshold is really interesting. And it gives you that sense of like, we're going to move into a culture where we accept artificial intelligence as part of the new norm. It doesn't happen all at once, right? Is my point. But actually, that reminds me that I think I've been seeing this commercial on Hulu where you can get is it a Samsung phone? I forget what brand of phone it is, but it's a new phone, and it's telling you, trade in your old phone and go with us. We'll give you a new phone. And the phone comes with, it says right on there, the phone is like now with AI technology or something like that. So clearly we are in a transitional period where artificial intelligence is working itself into our everyday lives. And I, for one, I don't think that is very wise. I mean, I may just be the grouchy conservative who wishes to retain some resemblance of life as I know it, or the world that I have been living in for most of my life, that didn't have this new thing. But such is the way of humanity, that we seem to always introduce technology just because we can, without really tempering whether we should, and a lot of times technology can help. So who am I to speculate whether this is ultimately going to be something that can be beneficial to humanity? I'm not sure, but my instinct says, it grumpily says, not another damn thing to make our lives more technologically complicated and complex. And it's like tiring for me almost. But be that as it may, all of these things I think relate to Pluto in Aquarius. So we're getting this first sub feature of that this week with the full moon in Leo. And of course, most of us are going to feel that Plutonian Aquarian energy on a personal level, right? And we could feel that with this full moon. So let's get into the full moon itself. So the moon is in the sign of Leo, making that opposition to the sun around 5 degrees and change, or 6 degrees of Leo. And so Pluto is now just at the very beginning of the sign, still pretty close to the sun. So we are still coming off of the heels of this Sun-Pluto conjunction that happened last week at the very, very last degree of Capricorn, as both planets were transitioning into this new sign, which for me sort of showed up in my life as kind of the intensity around being sick, among other things. But that was sort of the thing that I noticed about the conjunction in my personal life, was that everybody around me was getting sick. And so it made things just more complicated, and people had to be taken care of, and friends were getting sick. Friends were going to hospital. So there was kind of this intensity around the vitality of life, with me personally going through a cold, and in the family with other people going through colds, and so on and so forth. So for me, that was kind of an interesting manifestation of that conjunction. But now it's beginning to separate, but it's doing so as both planets are now in a new sign and adjusting to that new changeover of signs. And then here comes the full moon. So first of all, what do Leo full moons, what could they represent, or what's a way that you could read a full moon in Leo, apart from being connected to this opposition with Pluto or anything like that. Because, of course, we're going to get a full moon in Leo one time a year, right? Now, some of the interesting storylines or motifs of this, I think, could be something like remembering eternal images. Now, the moon is a planet of remembrance. It's a planet that is always circumambulating the Earth, right? It's very close to the world, and it is almost like the mother that rotates around the Earth, always keeping an eye on her children down below, so to speak. It has that connection to things that we remember, things that we return to, things that we come back to, like family or relationship or a connectivity with people that we love, and so on and so forth. So it has that sort of watchful, nurturing eye. And when you get a planet of remembrance that is waxing full in the sign of Leo and moves into that culminative ripeness, that is a powerful feature of perhaps, and doing so in the sun's temple. Let's bring that element in here as well. When that kind of remembrance and that kind of fruition is happening in the bright temple of the sun, a planet that is the brightest star in our sky and is recognized as having that individual, unique, and it has this high status as the star of life that, of course, provides all life, and it relates to things that hold central authority, power, vitality, inspiration, wisdom, illumination, or meaning, right? So Leo has to do a lot of times with those central meanings or narratives that run in our lives. And when you get a planet that is a planet connected to remembering and nurturing, and it's as if nurturance and remembrance is happening in a place that returns to whatever images we have that may have always been with us. Maybe an image that comes back as we get older and has been there since, maybe even as long as we can remember. There was this certain ideal or image of like, this is the thing that makes life really meaningful to me, or makes life really important, or these are the things that I want out of life. And for a time, I was too busy and wrapped up in doing whatever I have to do. But now is the time where it's like, oh yeah, I remember that is the direction that I was trying to take life in, right? Or these are the things, these are my goals or aspirations that I have forgotten about, that now I remember again. And I think that can be one theme of a full moon, just in general in the sign of Leo, is sort of that coming back to your roots in some way, coming back to something idealistic or an image that has always been there, or a part of yourselves that feels as though this part is core to who I am. And while other things may change in time, elements of myself may evolve, and I may decide that I no longer am this, or I no longer am that. I've changed, I've transformed in some way. But then there are pieces of ourselves that I think we recognize as like that has always been there. And so this may be a time where it's, for some reason or somehow, you remember and come back to that part of your life, or that part of yourself, or that meaning or image that just is kind of this eternal flame that you have always held. So that is one way I think you could read a full moon in the sign of Leo. And part of that, or if you maybe think about it or put it in different terms, you might see things like motifs of the legacy of things coming into view right now and becoming centrally important, with things like the legacy of the family, right? There may be something about what is our family's legacy, and is that something that somehow comes up as kind of a topic of importance right now, maybe within your family or something like that. But of course, the moon can also represent people like mothers. So could this be things coming into view that have to do with the legacy of your mother? Like if your mother was a famous author or something like that, and all of a sudden, there's something coming up where you're having a time of reflecting upon who your mom was and what she did or something like that. I could see that also sort of coming into focus right now. Also, now, of course, most of us don't know the queen, but I think that putting the queen in there as a key word for a Leo full moon, you can't talk about a Leo full moon without talking about the emblem of motherhood, or the nurturer, or the mother as a person herself, being in this royal sign that is, again, the temple of the sun, a unique and distinct, powerful royal temple. So you definitely see people that are queen-like that may be coming into focus right now. So it doesn't have to be a literal queen, but I think that the motif of queen definitely just appears as we get Leo full moons each year. So that's one way that you could see this coming through this week. Now, another way that you could read this, if you sort of turn the perspective a little bit with the same motifs, but just sort of thinking about how could this also appear in a variety of ways, right? You could get a recognition of work or merit. Again, we're talking about the full moon, right? So this is a time where the moon, as it ripens and represents things that are coming to completion or coming to success or coming to that moment where you sort of sit back and you're like, it's done. Look how beautiful it is. That's kind of like the full moon. And again, that kind of recognition or completion or success that just is signatory of just any full moon. When that happens in the sign of Leo, again, this temple that is associated with a planet that sort of stands out and is regal. I sort of see that image of, somebody walking onto a stage and the lights blinding them, and like they're receiving an award for a merit or something, or like hard work or something like that. That could be a part of the theme here as well this week, where maybe something comes to completion or you finish a project or something like that. And it's like you're unveiling it for those around you. And it's like, you're getting pats on the back, like, oh, good job. You've done a really good job with this. I know one example that I think is most likely, hopefully it's going to happen for me, is that I have been working on, if you've been following the channel, you may have heard about me talking about this house that I'm building, and which of course takes a lot of work. And the house has this sort of overwhelmingly endless list of like tasks that has to be done, and there's this real like, this has to be done first and then that can be done, and it's real ordered. It has a sense of order to it. And a while back, it was this massive project that I was doing with the outside deck on the second story, where I dismantled the entire deck down to just down to the floor joist. That's the word I'm trying to think of. The rails, the deck boards themselves, this whole thing got dismantled, and it was so I could sand everything and lacquer it, because we wanted to have a natural looking deck. So instead of like painting all the wood and stuff like that, I took this entire thing apart. And there was a need to do that because the floor joists were actually entering into the house on a side where there's some rain. And so I wanted to really do a good job with this deck. Anyway, the point is that was a huge project. It took, I don't know, months. And then it got done, right? And then there was painting, and that took a long time. Well, the latest project that I have been working on has been the inside staircase up to the second story. And it was done by the construction crew with plywood. And my partner and I decided we don't want carpet. So if you don't have carpet, you need something nice to go over the staircase. So I decided, I want a classic oak staircase. So I went on YouTube and learned how to do this because I've never done anything with a staircase before. And I've been working on this for, I think, about a month or so. And it is wrapping up to completion. And it's so beautiful. I mean, it's this sanded, beautiful, hard oak wood staircase. The treads and risers are oak. The side skirts and the skirt along the wall is oak. And then the rail is, I've made all of the rails and the balusters and all of that stuff and the newel posts and everything. Everything has been a lot of work, and it's been turning out well. But as I've gotten each piece of this thing done, we all go over each day and look at it, and we're like, oh, it's really beautiful, and it's coming together. Well, this week is going to be pretty much the week that everything gets painted and lacquered and hopefully assembled. So I could see this, for me personally in my life, being that moment where it's like I'm able to put the whole staircase together, and we even have the carpet or the rug that is going up the staircase. It's going to look really, really good and beautiful, and everybody's going to sort of stand back and go, wow, it's beautiful. And it's just a staircase, but when you do something like that and you're very proud of it, and it's taken a lot of work, and it's, for me, I'm not a finished carpenter by trade or anything like that, so I don't, I'm going to be really proud of myself. So there's a lot of that leonine pride that comes through in the full moon. And, hopefully my project will be done, and it'll be a really good representation of kind of that things coming to completion and fruition and sort of receiving like accolades and merit. Not that that's what it's about for me, but, it'll be nice to sort of stand around and have everybody sort of bask in the glory and luminosity of my wonderful achievement, right? So this full moon may have that kind of quality to it for some of us out there. Now, the one thing that I think is adding to the mix a little bit more on the shadow side of this full moon is, of course, going to be the fact that the moon is culminating to that fullness or ripeness pretty close to an opposition with Pluto. And Pluto and the sun are still pretty close to a conjunction. They're separating and recovering from that. But, how does Pluto enter into the intensity of maybe the tension that's built into the full moon? Because remember, full moons are also oppositional aspects, right? They are aspects where the lights are standing in opposition. And so you, at times, of course, can feel the energy of full moons as trying to balance two things simultaneously, or being on one side of something and having people be on another, or just sort of feeling like there are two sides to something. That can be a little bit of the tension that we have with full moons. And being that Pluto is near the sun side of the tension, what could that mean? Well, it could mean that, like, going back to that idea that maybe there are things that are important to us that have been kind of like us holding that eternal flame all our lives, or something like that, some kind of eternal flame on the one side. And maybe at this time within us, there is a feeling like somehow we might need to reject that and do something new. seen by the sun's position in the sign of Aquarius, right? Aquarius, that is a sign about, a Saturn ruled sign that is all about at times defying um, the the established authority, right? Standing in Aquarius being the sign that stands in opposition to the sun's temple. So you can get the rebel against the authority figure or the authority itself, and wanting to go in kind of an eccentric or new direction, having those ideas that are really exciting and innovative, and somehow sort of throwing off what has been to sort of be progressive or something like that. So could there be this sense of like, well, I've always held this flame, but there's part of me that feels like maybe there's the need to sort of reject that on some level and try something different or new. That could also be part of it. Or it could be that there are those around us that are holding that flame, and we feel like maybe they're not seeing everything, and we should try to bring things into more of a progressive position for the sake of the good of all, or something like that. Or it could be that that's the side that that's the position that we are holding. Or it could be that we're holding the position of, well, this has always been the way it's done. These are always been the rules or the laws or the, we've always had this, or we have always worked towards that, or this is always the thing that we have held as sort of the image, right? And there could be those around us who say, well, yeah, but that's not in line with what is in line with what should be, or something like that. It's almost like peer pressure on one level, or like the collective or the peanut gallery, or those around you that maybe bringing in a resistance to that. And with Pluto there, it could be quite intense at times. So that is part of the full moon energy as well. Now, the one thing that I do like, if we roll the real-time clock forward to January the 27th, coming in on Sunday, the very end of the week, one thing that's really, really cool, right around, I've got the real-time clock set to London time, just to make it central for everybody, but right around, let's say, I don't know, early morning London time, 8, 9-ish in the morning, you'll see that here is Venus at 6 degrees, making or applying a superior trine to Jupiter at 6 degrees. So the benefics move into a trine with one another, which is really amazing, right? When you have the benefics planets in ancient astrology that were thought to be those planets representing the good or beneficial or supportive things that we encounter in life, having those two planets come together in a benefic aspect, said to be of, trine said to be of the nature of Jupiter themselves, that's a really positive thing. So it's as if there's a positive outcome to the full moon in some way. That's sort of the way that you could read this. But also the moon moves into the sign of Virgo, and then because Venus and Jupiter are making that trine at the very beginning degrees of the other Earth elements, or the other Earth signs, the moon coming into the third Earth sign joins the trine party, and you get this grand trine that forms between the moon, Venus, and Jupiter all in one. So that's really, for me, it gives an omen that says, hey, things are going to work out for the best somehow, right? And some of the things that you could maybe say about that is that, Venus and Jupiter coming together, you'd have things like perhaps peace and reconciliation as being a signification. So if there were disruptive things if there were some tensions or arguments or things like that. Now, one thing I forgot to mention too is that Mercury and Mars are in the process of coming into a bodily union or conjunction with each other right as the full moon is coming through as well. So when you add in the mix of that Pluto Sun conjunction and then you have Mercury Mars, you get the sense that there may be the propensity or the possibility, you could say, of like the potential for eruption and argument or something like that. So this grand trine that is happening in the earth elements between the moon, Venus, and Jupiter right after, a day or two after the full moon comes through with all of that tension and signifying, things like peace and reconciliation or arboration or support or something like that. I like that. It seems like whatever transpires during this time works out favorably or is for the best or brings in support or brings in good things in general. Now, one sort of funny motif that I saw as like an image in my head for this grand trine was kind of like an office party. And, when you think about Venus and Jupiter coming together in a trine, the first thing that comes to mind may not be like an office party, but the reason that I thought or like had that image, I think, is because we're seeing that Venus is in that superior position to the right of Jupiter and is in the sign of Capricorn. So for me, it's like Venus and Capricorn. I think of like, the seriousness of Venus being in a Saturn-ruled sign. But, sometimes Venus can be social things or social pleasures or something like that. So you get like parties or weddings or something like that. But it has that air of like almost seriousness or like there's something worky about it, right? And so I thought, okay, maybe it's like an office party. And, in combination with the moon, also in Virgo, that kind of Virgoian, not seriousness, but like dutifulness or helpfulness that you get with the moon there. I'm not saying that everybody's going to find themselves at an office party shortly after the full moon, but that motif of kind of like maybe there's a social dynamic to it where people are coming together in some way, or there's reconciliation and there's mediation or there's support, but it's happening in kind of this dutiful, responsible, duty-bound, pragmatic, like low-key, almost like how you would be at an office party kind of a thing. Like it's good, you're hobnobbing there, deals being made or emotions being soothed over or something like that, or benefits that are being given or something like that. But it's coming with this sort of like Washington D.C. Political event or something like that. Having going to a party on hanging out with your boss on a weekend or something like that. Kind of interesting, but that is just, of course, one theme that sort of popped into my mind. Of course, there could be many variations of this, but this is the astrology that I am seeing for the week ahead for all of us and some of the motifs that are surrounding the astrology. I appreciate you guys watching. Please leave in the comments anything that you found of interest or anything that you noticed that is happening as the week goes on. And we will take a look at next week's astrology for Mantic Monday episode number 21 next Monday. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll be back with another video next Monday. Bye for now.